Hey guys, happy Imbolg. Today I am going to be talking a bit about Imbolg. I wrote really the definitive study of Imbolg for a book that I'm still working on. It's a long-term process or book. The book title is actually going to be Whence the Witch's Sabbath or Sabbath. And it's really going to be a study of the seasonal quarters throughout Indo-European cultures. So I'm very interested in that subject. I'm very excited about it. I can't wait to finally complete it. But yeah, today is really one of my favorite Sabbaths. Actually, I love them all, but today has special meaning to me because I did write the definitive study of that festival, and I will include a link to that article down below in the description box. But I really wanted to I really want to know what you do on this festival. Do you have any personal traditions that you engage in? Um, do you do anything special on your altar? Do you have any particular invocations, any gods that have special reverence to you at this time? At this time, we actually, in the Covenant of Morrigan, we identify the Morrigan as a hearth goddess. In fact, there are even ancient cooking sites in Ireland that are today known as the Morrigan's Hearth. And ultimately, what a hearth goddess is, she was in the European cultures, because I also wrote what is really the definitive study on the hearth goddess, is she was, and this has been many, many years ago that I wrote this, so my memory is not perfect. I don't pretend to be. I do not have an eidetic memory. I wish I did. But the hearth goddess ultimately was the foundation of civilization in a sense. Um, when cultures moved and established a new city or a new home, the tribe or the family or the clan would take with them a parcel of of flame coals and rekindle them at their new residence. And they would do the same thing for their new city. And the hearth flame was attached to the continuation of the clan, of the tribe, and the society. It was directly tied to the life of the chieftain, even, or the emperor, um, and especially the male lineage. When a new child was born, the child was often carried around the hearth 3 times. And the same thing happened during wedding festivals as well. Mothers would often give to their daughters a token flame during wedding festivals of their ancestral hearth to be rekindled in her husband's new home. Um, so yeah, you even find similar associations in the Celtic countries. But what I tend to do more simply at Imbolg is it's a Sabbath that I really like to bake at. I mean, I like to bake in general, but I have a few recipes that I always make at this time. It's either oatmeal cookies with cinnamon, or my famous sugar cookies with Meyer lemon zest, because Meyer lemons are in season at this time in February and late January. I used to think that they were only very seasonal, but I am seeing them more and more. They're being stocked in more broad seasons. I saw them last December, I think. I may be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it used to be that I only saw them for a short window of time in late January, early February. So that's why I tend to make these cookies in February for Imbolg. But it's also the time when I break out my um, my my milk glass, my collection of milk glass. This is one of my candlesticks. I have two, and my one of my potion bottles for my full moon potions. But I also have, my brass candlesticks. I'm looking for a second pair of these. Brass is actually associated with the sun, but also wearing a brass amulet or having brass in your home is said, according to folklore, to deter the ingress of witches and evil spirits. But at my altar, I tend to have candles of three colors. Um, I have white candles. I have aqua colored candles, and I have chartreuse colored candles. Now, the white candles are associated with the lingering snow on the grounds. And actually, if you're in Iowa now, we don't really have snow on the ground. We had snow for a couple of weeks in mid to late January, which is nice because it really hadn't snowed much until then. The aqua-colored candles signify the thawing rivers, lakes, and other bodies of water. And the chartreuse-colored candles signify the very beginning stages of plant life that is bursting through the warming soil. And really, that is what is at the heart of Imbolg in European in Indo-European cultures, is the sense of actual physical birth, that the association between human birth-giving processes and plant life were intimately associated with each other. I know a lot of people might really agree with me. Oh my God, I cannot talk today. I know that a lot of people might disagree with me because they haven't read that in any book. But bear with me; it's just a fact. I've written about it. I would not lie. I am impeccable about citing my sources. So I have all the footnotes there for you in my study. So just give it a chance. Let me think. Well, that's sort of just a very general rundown of how I prepare or gear up for Imbolg. I'm really excited to know what you guys do. So post a comment, let me know. And God, the UPS guy is really, really late today. I ordered a new printer last weekend so I can finish editing a book, and he usually drives right by my window, right by my house at 3:30, and he's over an hour late. So I have no idea what's going on there. One thing else that I really wanted to do before I wrap it up is really share with you some of my favorite books on the Sabbats in general and seasonal customs. So I will just start pile by pile. I just have a couple piles here of books. This is Nerys Patterson's the second edition, which is really important. Get the second edition if you can, because it's the one with this chapter in it that talks about the Irish quarter days. It is Cattle Lords and Clansmen. It's actually a really good book. Then we have, no idea what that's there, but we have Ronald Hutton's The Station of the Sun. Now, just because I have this book does not mean I completely endorse it whatsoever. And actually, the only reason I have it as a hardback copy is because you can't really find it in the U.S. anymore. Harvard in the U.S. doesn't carry this book anymore, so I had to order it from the branch of Harvard in England, and I thought to myself, you know what? If I am going to spend money on a book that I can't really find here, then I am going to get it as a hardback copy, just so I don't have to order it again in the future if my copy should wear down. So that's why I have it. As a scholar, I rarely agree with Professor Hutton. He is rather extremist for my taste, and it's not because he doesn't tell me what I want to hear. It's because I know better. I have an extremely good knowledge of the ancient past and of folklore, and he often makes very presumptuous conclusions. Um, often he will misrepresent the scholars he's citing. Often he will completely ignore evidence and really cherry pick evidence just to reach his conclusions. And he does, much more than that, obviously. And so, really, if you read any books by him, Caveat Emptor, particularly in Triumph of the Moon, he tries to get his readers to jump to conclusions. So watch out for that. One of these days, I will actually go through several of his books and really discuss at length why I hold some of the views about him that I do. For example, in a more recent book he wrote, which is Druids and King Arthur, he actually admitted that, or he confessed rather, that while he was writing Triumph of the Moon, he found unequivocal evidence tying modern pagan witchcraft to antiquity, but he intentionally ignored it, which is extremely troubling to me. I mean, I cannot imagine coming across proof positive of something, but because it's an inconvenient truth, I just ignore it and write as if it doesn't exist. That to me is extremely upsetting. And I wish more pagans were aware of that, but they often aren't. And many academic pagans who are completely dismiss it altogether, and they continue to believe Hutton's Wicca is modern narrative. Even when Hutton was in a documentary about Gerald Gardner, when he was interviewing Philip Heselton, who conclusively identified the members of the New Forest Coven into which Gerald Gardner had been initiated. If Heston didn't mention that at all, it wasn't discussed anywhere within the film, and that is also extremely upsetting. But I digress. My second book is Mistletoe, Facts and Folklore, which is actually, just a really simple, light, thin book. I found it at a tag sale a few years ago, and I really like it. And this book, actually, I was surprised when I found this book, because I looked it up on Amazon. It's Midsummer Magic, a garland of stories, charms, and recipes, and I was astonished by the price that sellers were commanding for it. They were commanding, upwards of $300 and more. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I found this book at a church tag sale one year. I was going through some items on a table, and I literally turned around behind me, and there were some boxes there of items that hadn't been put out. And I just sort of, browsed and picked around the boxes, and I found this book. It's in very good condition except for the cover, but it's a really light, lovely read. Definitely some things to really mull over. And this is an excellent book. If you haven't read it yet, you need to. It's another book that really stabs at the heart of many of Hutton's conclusions. In the Stations of the Sun, for example, he insists that Christmas cannot have usurped earlier pagan festivals such as the Roman Sol Invictus, even though The church fathers at the time writing about this said that yes, this is exactly why we chose this date. Because Hutton completely dismisses this by saying, by really giving an opinion that he sort of couches as a fact. Even though he doesn't really cite any sources to substantiate his views, he says that this could not have been the case because the festival of Sol Invictus was not particularly ancient at that time, which seems like it's pretty weak sauce to me, especially when you don't even um, cite any sources to substantiate your views. To me that is just really, really problematic. But this is Phyllis Cypher's Santa Claus, Last of the Wild Men, The Origins and Evolution of St. Nicholas Spanning 50,000 Years. If you haven't get it, get yourself a copy. It's an amazing read. It also discusses the Horn God and the connection with Krampus, I believe. This book, oh my god, this is one of my treasures. It's Kevin Danaher's The Year in Ireland, Irish Calendar Customs. I got this at the Half Price bookstore for $6. They did not know what they had. Oh my god, and I love it when I find something like that. It just gets my adrenaline flowing, and because at the time I couldn't find it online anywhere for less than $75. But now prices have come down substantially. But back then, I when I bought it, I thought that when I bought it, when I approached the register, I thought that they would tell me that there had been a mistake on the price because usually they know a book's value before they put it on the shelves, and I was certain that they were going to tell me that the price was wrong and that I needed to pay a lot more money for it, but they didn't, which is awesome. And as I was walking out to the car, I felt like I had stolen something because, in a sense, I had it because I knew the value of these books, but they did not. So I was just thrilled with that. It's been just a huge part of my research. This is Jacqueline Simpson and Steve Roud's book, A Dictionary of English Folklore, and I do not always agree with Jacqueline because she often defers to Hutton's book as an authoritative resource when it's not, and I feel that there is perhaps even an agenda at foot there. But that's just one of those other things you need to be wary of. Of course, no book would be complete without Eight Sabbaths for Witches by the Farrars. I actually have some, as soon as I can remove the sticker, I actually have some dust jacket covers that I'm going to be using on this book, as well as my copy of Power of the Witch. Because one year I actually went to the trouble of hunting down a hardback copy of this book because it really meant so much to me when I first read it years and years ago. Alright, and I have no idea what this is. I often leave sticky notes on books, and I have no idea what the hell I was thinking. But this is the classic by Alexander Carmichael, Carmina Gadelica, Hymns and Incantations. And Margaret Baker's, and this is actually a really good book. I really love everything that Margaret Baker writes. It's folklore and customs of rural England. For some reason, I have the hardest time pronouncing the word rural. And we have John and Caitlin Matthews' book, The Encyclopedia of Celtic Myth and Legend, a definitive source book of magic, vision, and lore. And this book isn't really an encyclopedia, as you normally think of it. It's a collection of source material, which is why it is so invaluable. This is another favorite of mine. It is The Silver Bow calendar of Scottish national festivals, Cannabis to Harvest Home, and it's by F. Marion McNeill. There are actually 4 books in the set. I recommend you buy all 4 of them. It's another invaluable source of folklore, especially from Scotland, because folklore from Scotland isn't the easiest to acquiesce. So it's a wonderful resource to have on hand, especially if you're interested in Scottish folklore. Um, these books actually disprove quite a bit of Hutton's conclusions from the Stations of the Sun. Because, as I have said, he is extremely premature in his judgments. He often makes sweeping umbrella statements, and as if what he's saying is an axiomatic fact, which is not always the case. This is another favorite book of mine by Emeritus Professor M.L. West, who is a classicist. It's Indo-European poetry and myth, and it has a lot of information about seasonal customs. And this book is actually pretty expensive. I want to say it retails for over $100. At least around the $90 range. I didn't actually pay for it. It was given to me by Oxford University Press, which was really awesome. We love you, Oxford. Usually. I have seen Oxford publish a turkey now and again. But usually it's extremely good. This is Mendelssohn, Goethe, and the Walpurgis Night by John Michael Cooper. Unfortunately, the author takes a very extremist view of Walpurgis Night. He doesn't really allow for any pagan survivals, really, which is unfortunate, but it's still an extremely interesting chapter in his book, the Walpurgis Night chapter. This is Polish Civilization, Essays and Studies. It actually includes a chapter about Polish seasonal customs, which is extremely invaluable for my research anyway. And this is another one of my favorite scholars in the subject of Celtic studies. So if you don't know him, buy his book, especially his book, what is it called? The Sacred Isle. It's about paganism in Ireland. Really, it's a phenomenal read. If you don't own it, get a hold of it. You will love it. I'm telling you, get it. But this is his book, The Lore of Ireland, an encyclopedia of myth, legend, and romance. His work has actually made such an impact on me that it broke my heart when I discovered that he died. I can't even remember what year it was anymore. But it wasn't that long ago, and I had had the opportunity to speak with him a few years before he died. I had asked him about the color red in terms of Celtic mythology, because so many people just tend to assume that it is associated with blood. And he said to me that it can be associated with blood, but it can also be associated with not only the hearth fire, but also the sunset as well. So that's also something worth keeping in mind for those of you who follow a more Celtically influenced path. And one of the last books is Celtic Culture, a historical encyclopedia. It's actually a 5-volume book, and each volume costs about $100. So I was lucky enough to get the whole set from ABC Clio. And it's really an invaluable resource. I don't always agree with what the authors say, but more often than not, I do. But that is really my my sort of it's sort of a book haul today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you like it. I hope you appreciate it, and I hope you read my own study of Imbolg. I hope you have a wonderful day. So until next time, um, have a badass time. God, I swear the UPS guy is still not here, and it's almost 5 o'clock. What the hell? It's totally unacceptable. So while I wait for him, I will work on editing and uploading this video. I will see you later. Bye. It finally arrived, like, God, an hour and a half late. Ugh. I swear. Yeah, it's like best 25 bucks I ever spent. It originally retailed for like 25 bucks, but it's an all-in-one with cloud-based printing, which it will be new to me. So awesome! Now I can get back to work on that book.